Hey everybody, Black Ninja 797 here, and welcome back to another Left 4 Dead ranking video, everybody. In today's ranking video, we are going to be ranking all the in-game tips in Left 4 Dead. And for those of you guys that don't know what I'm referring to, I am referring to these little things that are in the lower left-hand corner of the screen whenever you are in a safe room. These are basically in-game hints to indicate whether or not that you should do a certain action in order to progress through the campaign smoothly, and I think that some of them are more helpful than others, so I thought why not rank all of them from worst to best. If you guys end up enjoying today's video, please drop a like to show your guys' support, and let me know in the comments down below what you guys think I should rank next in Left 4 Dead. With all that being said, guys, let's rank all the in-game tips in Left 4 Dead from worst to best. Alrighty guys, so coming in at the very last spot, this is going to be, in my opinion, the only non-useful tip that is in the entire series. This actually comes from Left 4 Dead 1, because I'm going to be taking a look at both games, and this is the tip right here. Search for weapons and useful items. Thanks, Captain Obvious, I would have not fucking found that on my own. I appreciate your advice. Alright, now let's move on to the second one, where the tips start to get at least a little bit more than completely obvious. Shotguns can be devastating at close quarters combat. They are less effective at long ranges. Now I'd like to clarify something real quick. When it comes to these in-game tips, a majority of them come from Left 4 Dead 1 specifically, and the main reason why I believe a lot of the Left 4 Dead 1 in-game tips did not come back to the second game is because they're outdated. The reason I say this is because the Left 4 Dead player base has played the game for so long now that they've already figured out how all the different guns work. Now, in comparison to an SMG or an assault rifle or a sniper rifle, yes, the shotguns don't have as much killing potential at long ranges. However, though, this tip is not entirely accurate. Throughout the years of Left 4 Dead, players have played the game long enough to figure out what exactly they can do to make their guns the most powerful they can possibly be, such as, for example, but not limited to, shooting your shotgun and then shoving so that way you can shoot it faster. In terms of shotgun ranges, players have come up with multiple different strategies on how to make shotguns useful in pretty much all scenarios. Some examples, but are not limited to, crouching so that way the shotgun is more accurate at long range, and B-hopping and speed running so that way you can put the shotgun basically in the zombie's mouth before you end up pulling the trigger. So at the time of launch, this tip probably was very valid and useful for Left 4 Dead, but as the game got older, this tip just became kind of obsolete. Now we move on to the next one. Heal yourself or your teammates with first aid kits and pain pills. Now this is also once again from Left 4 Dead 1. Any of the ones with the header that's kind of like a gray color is from Left 4 Dead 1. And Left 4 Dead 2 is just plain black, so that way you guys can tell the difference. This tip would be very useful if you were a new player and never played Left 4 Dead before, but Left 4 Dead really doesn't have like any new players coming in the last several years, so this tip also is kind of outdated, but is still much more valid than the prior two. They all serve their purpose, but they're mostly meant for anybody that's new to the game, and it's just why it's hard to rank them is because there's really no new players in Left 4 Dead anymore. Get to the next safe room, look for the red steel doors. This is something that I feel like a lot of the dialogue would just clarify for you, so it's really not entirely useful. There are some of these tips that make sense. I'm like, oh yeah, I can definitely see how somebody would enjoy the reminder every now and again. But this is something that I feel like you would just get used to after a while and would be kind of pointless once you played the game for a couple months. It's one of those hard things to judge of whether or not that new player would need this long term, or this is something that they would only need in the short term. And in my opinion, this would be more towards short term, just because of the fact that, like I said, dialogue would probably clarify this and remind you of it. Revive fallen teammates before they bleed out. Now this tip is useful, but I feel like it should be tweaked just slightly and also clarify, depending on what platform you're playing on, whether it be Xbox or PC, what is the button that you need to press to revive your teammates, because I feel like that would be more useful. It's a given that the player is going to experience the bots reviving them, because of the fact that they're new, they're probably most likely going to die, so they're going to experience that just from the base gameplay. I feel like that a tip should end up clarifying the control scheme if it's something that you're going to be using quite regularly and is important to the gameplay, especially if somebody is new, because if they don't know how to do basic actions, they might be screwing over their team by just being bad, and that's not to be mean, but honestly, it's just the truth. Nobody likes a bad teammate. So I feel like that this tip was good in spirit, but it should have been elaborated upon more to be actually useful. Shove enemies away if they are too close, press mouse 2 to shove. This is exactly what I'm talking about. They not only clarify an important thing that's going to be critical to the gameplay, but they also tell you what button to press. This is exactly what they should have done with the last tip, but they didn't. So I give props to Valve for clarifying the shoving mechanic, because that's a critical part of Left 4 Dead, and if you wouldn't shove in this game, you would be putting yourself at such a massive handicap. It's very important that they clarify this, so good on Valve. Funnily enough, the shoving mechanic is the only tip that somehow came back in Left 4 Dead 2. This was the only one that Valve, I guess, wanted to re-clarify to the player base, because it comes back in the form of this tip. Knockback attacking infected for breathing room and a better shot. Now, even though I like the first tip and the way that it's worded better than the second one, I'm basically going to put these in the exact same spot because they're pretty much the exact same tip. The only difference is the wording. The reason why I just don't like Left 4 Dead 2's wording of it in comparison to Left 4 Dead 1 is two main things. Number one is that they don't elaborate on what button to press again. For some reason, they took that away, but yet for some reason, this is the only tip that they brought back from Left 4 Dead 1, so if you thought it was useful and should be clarified again, why did you take away what button to press in the tip? I feel like that was a little bit of a step backwards. The second thing, and this is just maybe just me being picky, I don't know, but I really do feel this way, is that I don't like the way that the image is contradictory to the wording. So in the wording, it's basically talking about how that you should shove the enemies away, so that way you can kind of basically get a moment to recoup, and you can also end up killing the zombie at a little bit further range, kind of like, let's say, gun range. But the image they decided to use for this tip was of melee weapons, which I feel like is kind of contradictory, because for melee weapons you have to get close, so why would you shove to get them further away from you, because you would just have to get close to them again. It makes no sense in my opinion. Alright, next is going to end up being the tips about how that pain pills give temporary health boosts, but you must be careful because they wear off, and then that adrenaline gives you a temporary energy boost and makes it easier to run through hordes. Now, pain pills and adrenaline are negligible in terms of their differences. They're both useful and they can both save your life. Now, I know there are some people that say that they'll like one more than the other. For me personally, for example, I prefer pain pills. But the thing is, though, is that they're both good and they both warrant use in the game. So that's why I think it's only fair to put these back to back, although I will say this is I prefer the adrenaline tip better just in terms of cosmetics because the adrenaline's actually in the header versus the pain pill one, which just has the generic like white box with the black eye in it. Alright, so here's the next in-game tip. It takes longer to reload a weapon if you empty the magazine entirely. Now the tip itself is a very good tip. In fact, I actually think it's one of the better tips that's in Left 4 Dead. My only problem with it is that it doesn't clarify what you should do as opposed to just reloading the gun if it was completely empty. The tip doesn't clarify that you should reload with some bullets in the mag or reload with at least one bullet in the mag, so that way your reload animation is a little bit shorter, nor does it also elaborate on reload canceling or anything of the sort. So all it does is just basically tell you not to shoot every bullet within your magazine, which I feel like really isn't helpful because you're basically telling players that they can't use an entire mag to kill a zombie, which is kind of contradictory in terms of what you're trying to actually do. So now there's this weird thing where players are like, oh, well, the game's telling me that I shouldn't use an entire mag to kill zombies, so maybe I'll just start conserving my ammo, which you would think would be a good thing, but it's talking about, like, saving ammo in every single magazine and not just, like, making it where it's completely empty at zero. So people might not use an entire full clip, and they might just kind of get, like, jammed up, and they might not know how many bullets they should, like, reload at. And so they might use less bullets than is needed to kill an entire zombie, and so that might lead to them dying more. So this tip was good in theory, but bad in practice. And just timing your ammo consumption is just something I feel like a player will just get muscle memory with over time. Players over time will understand the TTKs of all the different guns, which guns are better at killing zombies at long ranges, which guns have better magazine counts, stuff like that. But that's only something that you'll figure out from just raw playtime, and it's something that really a tip itself cannot convey, even though it was good in heart. Alright, here's the next one. Always heal up and resupply ammunition before leaving the safe room. Now you might think I'm a bit silly for putting this tip so high up on the list, but let me explain. The main reason why I put this tip so high on the list is because even though people will end up getting ammo for their guns or just swapping out their guns and healing when they're on red HP, some people forget to heal just in general when they're in the safe room. They should use every single med kit that is offered to them. Even if you're going to get like a 5 HP difference, that is still important. You should always maximize your heals. Why would you go out when you can end up having more HP? It just seems foolish to me. This is especially important in things like versus or on expert mode, where you take a lot more damage than you think you actually are going to take, and you could die just because of a small difference in your health. So this says pipe bombs are noisy, they lure infected before exploding. Now this not only clarifies what a pipe bomb does for anybody that's not played Left 4 Dead before, but also kind of hints towards using the pipe bomb. I feel like instinctively a lot of players would probably go for the Molotov because it's, fire, and fire is kind of like one of those awesome elements. When people say like, hey, what element do you want to control, like water or fire or wind or stuff like that, a lot of people pick fire just because it seems badass. The idea of having a Molotov cocktail in your hands and the ability to control fire seems awesome. But the pipe bomb is awesome too, specifically for in situations where you're surrounded by hordes and you need to get them off of you quickly, and if you try to do this with a Molotov and you just threw it at your feet, you would burn yourself alive, so the pipe bomb would be much better in this type of situation. I like the fact that this tip is mostly around to not only keep players alive, but also just to encourage everyone to use everything within the game, and not just continually crutch on one item in the game. Now we have laser sights increase your weapon's accuracy. Some people might not know that laser sights exist in Left 4 Dead because their drop rate is one of the lowest in terms of things you can find, and I think that laser sights are one of the best things you can get in Left 4 Dead. They make your gun not only more accurate like the tip says, but it's just really, really cool to also see that laser on your gun. Now we have the tips about the incendiary and the frag rounds, basically talking about how that you can get these around the map and end up making so that way your guns can either set people on fire or give these zombies kind of like a stumble knockback effect. Incendiary and frag rounds are both excellent in Left 4 Dead. Now I personally prefer incendiary rounds, but that doesn't mean that either of these tips are going to be better than the other. They're basically just clarifying what the equipment does. And I think that this is something that is really great for anybody that's new to Left 4 Dead, specifically for anybody that's struggling to get into the higher game modes and really can't end up managing to get past anything besides normal mode. So if you want to have that just a little pick-me-up, you can use some extra ammo, specifically ammo that will be a lot more powerful than the base gun, which can be allowing you to be able to kill the special infected much more easily. Now these last few in-game tips here, in my opinion, are the best, and if there ever is a Left 4 Dead 3, all of these should come back. Crouch during horde attacks. This way, teammates standing behind you can shoot over your head. This not only clarifies what situation that crouching would be useful in, but it also basically is kind of like a hint saying to watch where you're shooting. I've had so many teammates that have accidentally shot me and got me killed. And I've done the same. We have all done the same. You'd be guilty and be lying yourself if you said you have not. And that's why I'm glad that this tip is around, because everybody makes mistakes and everyone just needs to have that reminder again. Some people get comfortable and complacent after a while and just kind of get into a rhythm, and then they forget to end up using the strategies that made them successful back in the beginning, and then they end up having it where they have a dip. So a lot of people just sometimes forget to crouch and just avoid gunfire, and then they get killed over stupid stuff. So please, 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 everybody, take note of this tip and remind yourselves to look at it every now and again, and stop fucking shooting me in my lobbies, please. Now we have infected cannot open doors, they must break through them. Somebody that plays Left 4 Dead even regularly may forget this. Some people just might panic, and they might just try to spray at a zombie, realize they have no ammo, and then they end up getting killed when they simply could just close the damn door. Now, the doors in Left 4 Dead are not completely made of iron and steel. They will eventually break, and they will end up having it where the zombies can get to you eventually. But the thing is, though, is that they buy you some time. So if you do not have a bile bomb, you do not have a pipe bomb, you don't have ammo, you don't have a melee weapon, you can just simply close the door. And I feel like just a lot of people just forget you can do this. Now, I understand that the door is something that is easily able to be forgotten because it's really not that useful. If somebody really wanted to kill you, especially if this is in verse, so they can just go around. But you still, if you really want to be effective, use everything, including the simple doors in the map. Now we have the tip, bullets can pierce through doors, furniture, and thin walls, and hunting rifle rounds can pierce through almost anything. This tip is very good, and it's probably one of the best in the entire game, specifically for the reason that it's always going to be relevant and it's always going to be useful to you. People will forget, and people will end up needing a reminder. Not only that, but people could also use this as a hint to try to test out new surfaces that they have not tried to shoot through before. So for example, if you have a different gun of a higher caliber compared to what you normally use, try shooting through something that you normally would not shoot through otherwise, and see if you can get a wall bang so that way you don't have to play into an infected's trap. If you have a smoker that's trying to play you and try to peek you so that way they can end up getting you, try to bait him and just shoot him through a window or a wall or something and see if you can get the upper hand. I feel like that this is going to be one of those 200 IQ moments that a lot of people just don't utilize, and they should, because this will not make you a good player, this will make you a great player. Now we're on the last 5 tips, and all these relate to the special infected. Now, I'm surprised to see that they only ever give 5 in-game tips about the specials and not talk about all 8. There is actually no in-game tips about the smoker, the jockey, and the tank. They only talk about the others, so I'm surprised to see why that Valve only picked certain special infected to talk about, because I guess that they thought that one was more important to clarify than the other. Either that or they just looked at the jockey and be like, yeah, you're completely fucked if this thing is around. Alright, so let's rank these last 5. So starting off here, we're going to go with the boomer tip. Stay away from boomers, shove them away before you shoot them. Players that are not familiar with the boomer's mechanics are going to catch on very quickly why this tip is useful, because the boomer is going to kamikaze your ass and end up blowing up and causing his guts to go all over you if you shoot him too close. So it's a good thing to be aware of that, and it's a good thing that Valve warned the players ahead of time. Now we have watch out for spitter goo. The longer you stand in it, the more damage it does to you. This is going to be the spitter in-game tip. This one is also really useful because it clarifies why it's important to avoid the spitter acid in Left 4 Dead, because people may not take it seriously right away, and then they end up getting red screened like almost immediately. So you want to be very aware of when a spitter is around, and if so, can you be able to avoid her and not stay in her spit for too long so it doesn't kill you. Now we've got the hunter in-game tip, and I like how that they're having a sense of urgency in this tip. The wording is as such. The hunter's pounce attacks leave survivors completely helpless. Save pounce teammates or they will die. It is made crystal clear to the player immediately when they read this that if a hunter is around and it's got your teammate, unless you do something, they are screwed. So you need to take immediate action, be aware of any sound cues that you hear indicating that a hunter is present. Now we got the charger tip. It says, chargers are capable of knocking down an entire team. A charger will not release a survivor once they have been pinned. The exact same seriousness as the hunter, even though it's not necessarily worded the same way. But I also do like the added attention to detail talking about how a charger can basically kill everybody, not just one person. Chargers are fast, they are very unforgiving, and they're on the tankier side. Like, for example, a charger will actually take 2 melee hits comparison to like some of the other specials. They are actually a lot more stronger than the average zombie, and they will destroy you if you underestimate them. That's why we have the whole karma charger meme in the entire first place within the Left 4 Dead community. You do not mess with the charger. And now, guys, we move on to the last special infected in-game tip, and in my opinion, the best tip in the entire game. Witches hate loud noises, flashlights, and being approached. Now, the witch is the most lethal special infected in the entire game. She will one-shot you, and she will one-shot kill you in expert mode. You do not mess with the witch in any capacity, regardless if you're a veteran player or not. This tip clarifies everything the witch hates, all 3, loud noises, flashlights, and being approached, so there's no way that you can mistake exactly what pisses the witch off. It's crystal clear about what angers her. And second of all, also as well, is that this clarifies and hints to the player that the witch is not to be messed around with because she is really pissy about every single one of these things. So if you miss one of these things, guess what? You're dead, and players will figure that out eventually, even though the tip doesn't say it out loud. But I'm pretty sure that they'll get the hint, literally. Alrighty guys, so that's going to be it. I hope you guys end up enjoying today's video, and if you did, please consider dropping a like, comment, subscribe, follow, and all that beautiful stuff. Let me know what I should rank next in Left 4 Dead 2, and if you guys would like to financially support the channel, I would tremendously appreciate if you guys could end up doing any of the following. I would really appreciate if you guys could go check out my Patreon. It's linked down below my YouTube video descriptions. Please also use my supporter creator code BlackNinja797 in all caps in the Fortnite and Epic Games item shops, because Epic is my very first sponsor, and they're sponsoring today's video, so shout out to Epic Games. And lastly, guys, just also want to let you know that I recently started a business. It is called Breakthrough Business. With Breakthrough, I'm going to be making multiple different psychology-themed courses on how you guys can end up improving things such as your character, your mental health, and also your relationships. All this additional content is going to be available at mastermind.com, and already within mastermind.com I have my very first course out for you guys, which is called The Courageous Man Blueprint, How to Achieve Unbreakable Confidence for Young Men. So please check all that out in the description down below. But yeah guys, I hope you end up enjoying seeing another YouTube video from the most unique YouTubers you're ever going to see. Thanks for watching guys, I love all of you, and peace out.
Hey meme lords, Jesus here, and you better have enjoyed that video there by the eternal god Daddy Ninja. You should probably subscribe too, or the mighty Moab will come for your balls. If you enjoyed the video, you might like it too, and give me the memes. Flash, bang, boom!